And that's
It's
why no
social
matter how
signaling.
much you read,
Yeah.
yes, exactly.
Hmm.
Basically, you hold this belief because this shows that I belong to these group of people,
Right.
and this also defines my identity. So no amount of logical
Yes.
reasoning can change that, because you're basically killing that person, because you're telling them that their entire identity is based on something false, right? So the only way to fix false beliefs beyond logical reasonings is to get society to consider certain beliefs, which is basically certain identities, to be identities that are shameful or taboo,
Unacceptable.
and you do
Absolutely.
unacceptable. Yes,
Hmm.
yes. So
Yes, I
I do
totally
think
agree with
that
you on that. Yeah.
okay, okay, that makes sense. All
Yeah.
right. Wait, we got another super chat by Nail Bunny saying, "Careful with this. Freedom from
Hmm.
consequences. Women
Yeah.
were sacked for saying there were two sexes because trans
Absolutely.
rights activists harassed their employees." Okay,
Yes.
but well, you go ahead. You respond to that
So
first.
I totally agree, right? And this is one of the arguments for conservatives not participating in cancel culture. However, is the fact that conservatives have largely ceded the moral high ground or what is socially acceptable to the left the reason these kinds of views, the ones that were socially acceptable 20 years ago, everyone held them? Is that the reason they're no longer considered socially acceptable and grounds for firing? So, like, I think at a certain point, conservatives, libertarians, people in the right, people in the middle need to participate in the actual marketplace, right? And so we can't keep
Mm,
ceding the moral high ground, what is socially acceptable to the left. We can't keep letting an increasingly radicalized left wing decide what the social taboos are, because it's becoming not taboo to celebrate the murder of your political opponent. And it's becoming taboo to say that there are two sexes, right? So
right.
participation in this marketplace, I think, is essential.
Yeah, I mean, the marketplace of ideas is not just with reasoning; it's also
Mhm.
with making certain things taboo, introducing them as taboo, as shameful, as
Mhm.
disgusting. And I don't know if that, and Neil Bunny, I appreciate the point. I don't agree with that, because I think just because they're doing it and they did it the wrong way, it's kind of like, let's say if you get fired because your boss was flirting with you and you didn't respond and you got fired. And like, oh, your boss shouldn't have fired you for that. That's insane. And then another person says like, oh, I'm going to fire this person because I don't like her. And you're like, why don't you like her? Okay, because, and you say, because she's a literal Nazi. She has Hitler pictures on her Facebook picture, like she's posting celebrating Hitler on X. I don't like to work with this person. I'm like, okay, you can fire her. Like somebody said, like, hold on, man. We don't want to establish this norm that it's okay to fire people because you don't like them. Because didn't you say that that first example was wrong? I'm like, yeah, but that was a bad. Just because both of these people are firing somebody they don't like, that doesn't mean they're comparable, right? So I'm
Mhm.
saying firing somebody because they said there are two biological sexes, that's insanity. But firing somebody because they were celebrating a terrorist act against somebody because they didn't believe in their views, that is okay. Just, one consequence is a consequence that shouldn't be normalized, and another consequence is a consequence that I think it's okay to be normalized. Like these are not the
Mhm.
same thing. Do you agree that these are
I
not the same
Yes,
thing? Like,
they're
yeah,
not the same
yeah,
thing. But that's why we have to
yeah,
participate in this marketplace, and that's why I think it's not hypocritical, because if you let
right,
one side determine the taboos of society and you are not participating in determining those taboos, they will run rampant, right? So
right,
that's when we get people getting fired for espousing pretty normal run of the mill beliefs. Um,
right,
but yeah,
right.
I mean, to take it back, like I do think the list to me is just like it's like a consistent thing for me. Like I think we need to offer opportunities for redemption, and I'm willing to hear out that there may be some way to do that. But I am skeptical of like the actual follow through on that. I also think that on the right currently, there's a big conversation being had on where is the government's role in all of this? What can they censor?
Yeah.
And I would love to dive into that with you as well.
Yes, let's do that right now. So let's listen to this, because we were talking about the left's response to Charlie's assassination. And honestly, let me actually compliment conservatives before we start criticizing them, because I mean, I don't know, Maggie, did you see any riots
Nope,
in regards to?
not one.
I didn't notice any riot. I didn't
Mm-mm.
notice any riots. I
Not a
mean,
single,
not
not a
like George,
single building on
not a
fire. Yeah,
single riot. Were
yeah.
they burning any stores? No,
Nobody,
nothing. I
nobody
didn't
was
see that.
looting a
No.
Target. Okay. Yeah.
So now that we complimented the right, so let's actually criticize the right, because this was a reaction by Attorney General Pam Bundy. Let's actually listen to it one more time
There's
here.
free speech and then there's hate speech. And there is no place, especially now, especially after what happened to Charlie in our society.
Do you see more law enforcement going after these groups who are using hate speech and putting cuffs on people so we show them that some action is better than no action?
We will absolutely target you, go after you if you are targeting anyone with hate speech, anything. And that's across the aisle. There's free speech.
That is scary. That is absolute. Do you agree that actually that I've never, like, this coming from a right-leaning
A-
person? There's hate speech
And a
and there's
lawyer at that. I mean, are you
and
kidding me? Like, this is, you should know this before you go into law school, that hate speech absolutely is legal and protected under the First Amendment. And, Pam Bondi tried to follow up the next morning after literally every conservative, libertarian, liberal, and leftist on the planet attacked her for these words because they are just like totally incoherent when it comes to the Constitution. She clarified the next morning that she meant words that are threatening violence. That is not hate speech. That is incitement, right? Those are threatening words. And we actually have, all of this Supreme Court precedent for the First Amendment to convict people who are actually threatening and who are actually inciting violence.
okay, you're being charitable. I don't think she clarified. I think she was changing her
She
position
quote
because of
unquote
the
clarified.
backlash.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
I
yeah.
think, yeah,
Yeah. Yes, I don't think,
that was,
like, how could you not? Yeah.
I have this, yeah, I don't know where this was coming from. I really need to know what the conversations were that happened in that podcast studio, who hit record, who stopped the tape, who said, "Yes, let's release this to the public." I don't understand how anyone let this fly from the administration, because it is so clearly a violation of our First Amendment rights to say you're to target people for hate speech. What, you can't even legally define that. And also, this is stealing right from the left's playbook, right?
Right.
They've constantly said we need to criminalize hate speech, whatever that is defined by them. I don't know where Pam Bondi was coming from. I'm glad she walked it back at least. But I know the government also wants to go after these groups that are creating the environment where political violence is happening. I'm very curious as to how they're actually going to do that. Luckily, we have the First Amendment, and we have a Supreme Court that has consistently upheld our First Amendment rights, that has clarified what these rights are over time. We have the Brandenburg test for what is actually an incitement of political violence, which we can dig into. And so, if the Trump administration does decide to, pass any laws or go after people unconstitutionally, they will be stopped. Right? We have a court that has consistently stopped efforts from people across the political spectrum who were in power, who tried to remove free speech rights. So we do have that protection.